First thing you do is you dry mop the entire floor. But when you're done dry mopping, instead of shaking it out in the corner and then it all gets back on the floor, you have to kind of shake it outside. There's really no way around it. Typically, it's dirt landing on dirt. So you shake it above dirt outside. So I'll take this mop, which has done the entire floor, I'll take this outside and shake it. So that's my very first step. Second step is you got to take towels that are wet and you drape them over the entire length. In fact, you drape them even further out than the length of the mop. Now, in terms of how wet, this is assuming you have an empty gym. You cannot do this with people in a gym, but if it's an empty gym, it should be so wet that when you squeeze it, you actually have water coming out. So it's actually about that wet. And what you'll see is the first swab will actually be where you can see water on the floor. But that'll last, that wetness will time itself out pretty evenly throughout the whole floor. So it takes two towels. So that's towel number one, towel number two. Spread them out nice, just like this. Then when you go to push, it'll gather up like that, and that's correct. Now this creates a certain friction to the floor. The water and the pressure actually is what lifts grease off the floor. So it's not just about dust, but it's about grease. Because the body sweats, and after a week of sweating, there's a certain amount of grease that hits the floor. That's hard to come up with. That only comes up with a combination of water and pressure. So I'm not just pushing it light, I'm pushing into it to create that force. Okay, so take a look at the bottom. If you can film this, this is from one down and back. You can see the amount of dirt. That's just from one swab. And this is after you dry mopped it. So that amount of dirt is just from one down and back. So what I'll do next is I'll now go the next one, but before I do, as I turn, I need to take the dirty part and close it over. So now I'm dealing with a clean towel. So I'll come around this way with a clean towel, down and back, and then I'll flip it again. So it's very important that when you're wet mopping a floor that you do not have anybody on the floor. This can't be done in between one event and another event. The best you can do in between busy events is dry mopping, because you don't want to have a wet floor and somebody slips on it. It's very, very dangerous. You can get a serious injury from landing on your neck or your head. So this has to be done in an empty gym. And really, to clean a floor right, you have to use excessive water. Water is what cleans the floor. And so it simply has to be done in an empty gym. By the time you get to your last swab, your towels are a little bit drier because you've left a lot of the water on the floor, and that last swab may only take 5 minutes to dry. But the question is, how long does it take to dry from the time you start? From the time you start till the time you finish should be about 10 to 12 minutes of mopping, but then you've got another 8 to 10 minutes beyond that for it to all dry. Your wettest most point to your driest point, they all need to be dry before the supervisor, before the person mopping leaves. You have to stand in the gym until it's dry, because you don't want to leave a gym that's wet just in case somebody walks in. A wet gym is a dangerous thing. So with some gyms that are really dirty, you get about halfway through, which I'm a little more than halfway through, and my towels, let's say for sake of argument, are really dirty and really full of dirt. This isn't necessarily the case from what you're seeing, but if it were the case, you would take these towels outdoors, shake all the dirt out of each one of them, then you'd bring your towels to a sink, re-wet them, and restart the process over from this point to finish your gym. The key is that your towels have to be wet through the whole gym in order for that to clean. One more key to cleaning the court correctly is that you don't stop at the edge of the court. I'm done with the court now. I'm going to continue a whole nother swath, at least the width of this broom, to clean the exterior of the court. That way people won't drag the dirt right back on. You may ask, how long will that type of a clean, that type of a wet mop last? And the answer is about 4 games before you'll need a dry mop. And then if it's the next day, you probably need to do it every day. But if this were a Sunday and you did that level of cleaning at, say, 1 o'clock, and you had games from 2 till 9, about halfway through the night you want to go through and dry mop one time. But that level of wet mopping will last for the day. Why are we demonstrating how to wet mop properly? The answer is because for the customers, for the players, it's much better to play on a floor that has grip. It's a much better basketball game. But for the administrators and the referees and the league, it's safer to do it this way in advance than it is to try to cram something before the game. The only thing you can do right before a game is dry mop. That's the only thing that's safe. Wet mopping has to be done on an empty floor. So in the event you're here at 7 o'clock wet mopping and there's a game that's at 7 o'clock, you as a lead referee or an administrator or as a worker for the parks department, you have to keep everybody off the floor while that's occurring. And not only off the floor while it's occurring, off the floor until it's fully dried. It's very difficult to do. In the event that you're in that situation, you have to do it. You cannot take chances. So the better bet is for the gyms, community centers to do this sort of approach during the day. It's a much safer approach.